All right, I think we're calling that this is officially it. Anybody who's not in the room right now is just going to miss out, which is their loss. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for sticking around all the way to the end of the day. I know we're all a little bit exhausted. I know those of us who don't live here are already a little bit extra exhausted because we're not used to the idea that you still work when it's dark outside. So I came from Australia where it's daylight till like about 8:45 and very hot. So I'm really confused about the times at the moment because I go, it's getting dark, you know, I should really go and find some food for dinner. What, it's 4 p.m. Okay, cool. Got some time. So welcome to how to build a Quokkabot. I'm going to do a bit of live demo in a second, but for now I'm going to pace around the stage a little bit because I've been on my feet all day, so they hurt. In case you hadn't worked out already, I'm from Australia. My name's Amy. I'm a front-end developer who is based in Perth, not the Perth in Scotland, not the Perth in Tasmania, not the Perth in Canada, the Perth in Western Australia. We have sunny weather and white sandy beaches, and because I work for myself, I get to spend a whole lot of time at the beach and the rest of it working from home in my pajamas. I'm super excited to be back at NDC London as well. NDC London was my first big international conference years ago, and the last time I was here was January 2020. There were things happening on the news, and we weren't really sure what was going to happen. So it's really exciting to finally come back and be here in person again, especially because anyone who was familiar with Australia's borders, I'm going to be allowed to go home too. So I could leave the country and then I'm allowed to go back. So that's really going to be really fun. I typically work in the front end, but I like to play around with different parts of tech. And so this is a side project that I've done some work with, which we're going to go through in a second. I am also a Microsoft MVP and Twilio champion, which is why their technologies are getting a bit of a showcase today. So today we're here to talk about how to build a Quokkabot. Who here knows what a Quokkabot is? You know what that was going to be my next question, is who here knows what a Quokka is? And who here has just really taken a punt and gone, this talk looks like it'll keep me awake for the rest of the day, I'll give that one a shot. So, a little bit about Quokkabot. Quokkabot first started when I did a demo at a conference in Sydney a few years ago. I had 10 minutes to showcase a Twilio communications API, and I decided to build the first iteration of Quokkabot, a bot where you asked for a picture of a quokka and it would send you a picture of a quokka. I wanted to showcase a little bit about Perth and how easy it was to get up and running. Now, this was using the WhatsApp API. As much as I would have loved to not use WhatsApp, unfortunately, telcos don't like to play nice with us doing weird things with phone numbers. So currently, US numbers are the only thing you can use to send MMS messages for. And being someone not from the US, I don't want to have everyone have to use a US number. So we went with WhatsApp. For those who don't know what Quokkas are, which I'm pretty sure was very few people, Quokkas are adorable little animals. They are only found on an island called Rottnest Island, which is off the coast of Perth. They have no natural predators over there, so they don't actually understand that they should be afraid of people, which means that you can get up close and personal with them, and they look like they're smiling, so they make adorable photos, and you can get up close and take selfies with them. Now, why is it important to know what a quokka is? Because you might have heard Australia has some not friendly animals. We've got some a little bit dangerous animals. So it's very important to know whether what you're looking at is a quokka or something a little bit more dangerous. So after I built the first iteration of Quokkabot, where you could ask it for a picture of a quokka and it would send you a picture of a quokka, after the event was finished, we were sitting down at the pub afterwards where all good ideas come from. And my friends went, what if it was an image recognition bot? And I had never done anything with machine learning before. I didn't know anything about image recognition, but thankfully I had a whole bunch of people who knew a lot more than I did, and we were able to build the next iteration of Quokkabot, which we're going to build today, which is image recognition. Now, this uses a few different services. We have, the users can send a message to a WhatsApp number, which uses the Twilio WhatsApp API, which then triggers my Azure function, which then sends a request to Azure Cognitive Services Custom Vision API, which sends the results back to my Azure function, back to WhatsApp, and sends it back to the users. So we're going to hope that Azure is fully fixed now, and hope that this works. So I'm going to step through the Azure function that we've got set up, and then we'll go through and give it a go. So inside of my Azure function, I'm going to require a couple of packages to get started. For this, I'm going to start off using the Twilio package. We're going to use this to send and receive messages. I've got the outside of my Azure function. Now, it's pretty great. It just sets this up from the beginning, so I didn't have to do too much. And then I'm going to go through and start to get some information from the request that the Azure function gets. So WhatsApp API sends to Azure function. We're going to get some of that information. The Twilio package that we're using, we're going to use TWIML, which is the Twilio markup language. It's how they craft messages. And we're going to create a message response. We're then going to create a new message response and add a message to that. Now, the docs, which I'll share at the end, have a whole lot of information about these functions and what you can do with them. We're then going to set a body of the message, which for now is welcome to Quokkabot. And at the end, we're going to send that as part of our message. So I'm going to set the message to a string, set that as the body of my request that will go back to WhatsApp. And I'm also going to set headers to let it know that we're using XML, because the Twilio markup language is a form of XML. So we're going to send that back. We're also going to set a valid status code, because it's really annoying when people don't set valid status codes. So once we've got all of that code, which here I have some I prepared earlier, and I do actually already have some here. I'm going to send a message to Quokkabot. It says hi, and I apologise, I swear this is as zoomed in as I can get on WhatsApp. And it says, welcome to Quokkabot. If you're able to see at the bottom, I have a message back that says, welcome to Quokkabot. If you can't see, I apologise. I promise you can test things out yourself later if you don't believe me. So I've gone through, I've sent a message, it's triggered my Azure function, and my Azure function has sent a message back. In case you don't believe, welcome to Quokkabot. We're at NDC London. Wow, this is 2019. That's so off. It's not even the last time I was here. Hi. And we have, welcome to Quokkabot. We're at NDC London. So we're able to trigger a response back when someone sends a message to WhatsApp. Next, we want to go through and get some information from the message that we're receiving. So to start off with, we're going to build the first iteration of Quokkabot, which you asked it for a picture of a quokka, and it would send you a quokka back. So we're going to amend our function a little bit. I'm going to call a couple of functions that I've prepared earlier. I won't go through them too much because they're not related to the most part of the content. What these functions are is random image, as the name suggests. We'll pick a random image, and then I have a list of photos of quokkas and photos of not quokkas. I'm then going to go through and get information back from the message that we've received from WhatsApp. So I'm going to go through and grab the message parameters from the request body. This is just a whole lot of fun stuff on how we get it. Then I'm going to go through and use a very, very advanced AI to check the wording of the message, otherwise known as an if-else statement and regex pattern matching. We are checking, does the message text contain the word quokka or not? So if the message text contains the word quokka, we're going to send them a picture of a quokka. If not, we're going to send them a picture of not a quokka, which 90% are pictures of my dog, because either way, people should get cute photos. So if the message contains the word quokka, it will send the body of the message to say this is a quokka, and will send them a random quokka image. If they haven't included quokka in their message, it will send a message that says this is not a quokka and send them a photo of not a quokka, which most of the time is a picture of my dog. Anybody able to guess an issue with this one? Yep.
If I create an image and write the text, this is a quokka.
Yes.
It will get through that.
Yes, that will then send you a quokka. Yes. The other problem with this as well is if somebody says, please don't send me a picture of a quokka, it'll still send them a picture of a quokka. So, but they're clearly wrong because everyone wants a picture of a quokka. So now that we've got that function, we're going to go through and, oh, come on. And clearly I was right to not live code because my live code backup. Please, I haven't made changes. Let's just pretend. There we go. Here's the code that I've prepared earlier, which is what we've just gone through. So now, when I send a message to Quokkabot, can I have a quokka? This should send me a picture of a quokka. And if I don't include the word quokka in my message, if I just say, hi, this is not a quokka. This is my dog. One issue, please don't send me a quokka. What's it going to do? It's going to send a picture of a quokka. Now, have I just very carefully scripted this, or does this actually work? Try it yourself. If you have WhatsApp installed on your phone, you should be able to scan this QR code and message Quokkabot yourself. If you don't have WhatsApp installed on your phone, now's your chance to install it, and this QR code will come up again later on in the session, so you can test it out. Give you a couple of minutes. This is also when we can test like the load that the dev server on my computer can handle with everyone starting to spam it at once. All right. Let's move on while people are testing it out. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through, we've sent in pictures of Quokkas, but remember at the pub we had the idea of let's make an image recognition bot. So I'm going to go through and integrate the image recognition as part of it. So to start off, I'm going to add some extra code through to my Azure function. I'm going to require the Azure Cognitive Services Custom Vision Prediction API. Now, Custom Vision is the product that we're using. It has two APIs, a prediction API and a training API. As the name suggests, the training API, you can send a photo to it and it will train a image recognition model. The prediction API, you can send a photo to it and it will run it against and make a prediction. I'm also then using the, as I'm getting credentials, Azure security, making sure it's secure because no one should have unauthorized access to a Quokka recognition model. Grabbing my environment variables, because it would be really stupid to accidentally put them on screen. And then grabbing my credentials and authenticating against the API client. I'm then going to go through and make a couple of changes as well when we're passing the information we get from the WhatsApp message. So we're already checking the text of the message that we receive. I also want to check to see if there's an image attached to the message. And so I'm going to check for an image, and if an image is attached to the message, I'm going to send that image to Cognitive Services Custom Vision and use the classify image URL function, which, as the name suggests, means I give it an URL of an image and it will run it against the model that I have trained, which we're going to have a look at in a second. I'm also going to then go through and pass it some information. The project ID is the model that I'm running it against. The iteration, I have various different versions, so which one I want to run it against, and I'm giving it the URL. At the bottom, we're then going to log our results out to the console so that we can have a look at them. I'm just going to quickly go through and we can have a look as well. For anyone who's not familiar with Cognitive Services Custom Vision, I ended up choosing to use this because I had somebody who recommended it and therefore unknowingly put their hand up to answering all my questions when I ran into issues. And B, I actually found it really easy to use. So we don't have a chance to go through it today, but I recommend having a play around with it. There's also an Azure booth out there if you have any issues. The custom vision service was super easy to train and set up a model. I'm using the image classification version. So there's image classification and image recognition. Image recognition identifies where in a photo something exists and is able to classify certain objects. Image classification just tells you if there is something. So image classification just tells me somewhere in this photo, there is a Quokka. That's it. I don't need to know where, don't need to know what the Quokka is. Somewhere there is a Quokka. I then went through and trained it. So you train this by giving it a bunch of photos and say these photos have these tags. I have two tags. One is Quokka. So I gave it about 50 photos of Quokkas, and the other one is not Quokka. And I gave it about 50 photos of things that aren't Quokkas, and then trained it. Now, these are very low numbers of images to go through and train a model. And to start off with, it was actually fairly accurate, but depending on what it is that you're training against, you'll likely want to use more photos. We're going to go through and trick it see if we can trick it later on as well. So this is where we've sent our image through to. We're then going to go through and remember, if somebody hasn't attached an image to the message, we're going to go through and run the test that we did before. Does it include the word quokka? We're going to assume that they asked for a picture of a quokka. If not, it's going to send a picture of my dog. So let's test this out. And hopefully it'll work this time. Dead. Awesome. So this time, I'm going to send it a picture. And here's some images I've prepared earlier. And while we wait for the conference Wi-Fi. So I then go through and send it an image. It will send that off to custom vision and should give me a response back. You can give that a go yourself if you would like. Now, I didn't actually set it to send the response back to me, so I'm not going to actually get that, but it is going to spit it out in the console. So somewhere in here, in my console, I have a whole bunch of results, which we're not going to look at there because that's going to be really hard to read. The results look something like this that we get back from custom vision. Now, there's a whole lot of information that we don't need, but we are specifically looking at the predictions that it gives us. Remember, I said that we have two tags. There is Quokka and not Quokka. So we have here our tag for Quokka and negative, which is not Quokka. And from those predictions, I really need two items. I need the probability. This is how certain it is that this tag is applied to this image, and then the tag name. So in this case, it's 0.9999 certain that it's a Quokka and 0.00007 certain that it's not a Quokka. So this is fairly sure that it is in fact a Quokka, which is true because it is a Quokka. So from this information, we're going to go through and format it in a nice format so that you can actually get a response back, because it's not just a case of knowing whether or not something is a Quokka. People kind of want to know how, like if something says it's 50-50 a Quokka, you're like, am I really sure? Should I really go and pat the thing, or is it actually secretly a drop bear pretending to be a Quokka? Got to be certain about these things. So we're going to go through and we're going to have a look at the results and format them nicely and send it back. So again, if there is an image, we're going to go through the result predictions. We're going to check the tag. Is the tag Quokka? Is the tag negative? And we're going to go through and add them to an object so I can get the probability values nicely afterwards. I'm then going to take those probability values and I'm going to convert them to percentages so that it's a nice round number. And then I'm going to check, is the outcome for negative greater than the outcome for Quokka, in which case we know that it's not a Quokka. And I'm going to set the body of the message to say, sorry, doesn't look like that's a Quokka. Give it the percentages back so that they can see the results. However, if they haven't sent in a picture of a Quokka, that's a little bit sad, so we're going to send them a picture of a Quokka. If the negative outcome is not greater than the Quokka outcome, then it probably is a Quokka, and we'll set the message body to say, yep, that looks like a Quokka, and we'll send them the results back. So, give that a go yourself. Yeah. Oh, it's. I'm going to actually change the code. There. Now you should get a response back. Yep, it knows squirrels and nuts. So, as I said, we started off with some very low numbers of images. For the most part, it was fairly accurate. There were a few other Australian animals that it did get a little bit confused by, but people had a lot of fun tricking it. So we're able to then go through and continue to retrain and correct any images that were wrong. For a while, it got confused by wombats. It thought wombats were quokkas. And someone mentioned something on Twitter and somebody else who's a big fan of wombats saw. And so they asked for the details and they just sent in like 50 photos of wombats to help to retrain it. So we've been able to go through. If anybody does manage to trick it, I have a couple of very special limited edition shiny Quokka stickers. If anybody can manage to genuinely trick it. You gave it. You get bicycle pictures. There might be quokkas in. Oh, there's a quokka in there. Yeah, there's just a very small quokka and mostly bicycles. Yeah. You might have to find the quokka in the picture you get back. But yeah, find me afterwards if you manage to trick it. And I have shiny Quokka stickers. How big's the current data set? That's an interesting question. Remind me afterwards and when we get to questions at the end, I'll go through and I can have a look. All right, so this wasn't too bad, but I like to overcomplicate things. It's no fun keeping things nice and small and easy to manage. So when people got incorrect results, I wanted them to be able to report them. So I added error messaging, which again, we're using our very advanced AI. And we have a regex that checks for, does the message text contain the word error, issue, or wrong? If the message contains the word error, issue, or wrong, I assumed that they were trying to report an incorrect result. So I'm going to set the message body to say, sorry about that, here's a Quokka to cheer you up. Because, you know, we all know when something breaks, as long as you've got a picture of a Quokka, fixes everything. Maybe that's what Microsoft should have done this morning, just send everyone a picture of a Quokka to cheer them up. We're then going to, once again, give them a random image of a Quokka. Once again, we then have the same test of, does the message contain the word Quokka? Send them a Quokka, and if not, send them a picture that isn't a Quokka. So yeah, sorry, here's a Quokka to cheer you up. Send them a Quokka, or not a Quokka. Which I forget where we're up to. 5. Step 5. Yep. So now if I send a message, I have an issue. I should get a response back there. Sorry about that. Here's a Quokka to cheer you up. So I can lodge an error report. I've been trying to work out why my slides are doing weird things, but I realised I'm going backwards accidentally. Lastly, we're going to change, people might message this number and not really understand what they have to do with Quokkabot. So rather than sending them a picture of something that isn't a Quokka, if somebody hasn't sent in a picture, so they're not trying to check if there's a Quokka in an image, they haven't reported an issue, and they haven't asked for a Quokka, we're going to send them a message that says, welcome to Quokkabot. and let them know what it is that they can actually do with Quokkabot. So you can send in pictures, you can ask for Quokkas, you can lodge an error report. Lastly, I reckon everyone should see pictures of Quokkas. So it doesn't matter what they've done, they're going to get a picture of a Quokka back. So we're going to go through and update that. So switch to the next step. Now, if I send a message that just says hi, there we go. It says, welcome to Quokkabot. I can do a bunch of different things that have to do with Quokkas. If you need a picture, just ask me. If you want to know if you've seen a Quokka, send us a picture and I will let you know. So we have a nice welcome message if people don't know what it is that they're talking about. So this was really cool and was really a fun way to play around with the different technologies. I'd not done much work with Azure Functions before, so I got to play with that. I'd not done much work with the Twilio Communications APIs, got to play with that. I'd done absolutely nothing with machine learning, so that was really fun to play around with that stuff. But I also understand that a lot of people don't use WhatsApp, which I would so love. I literally, my WhatsApp bio is I'm only on this for Quokkabot, do not message me here. So I wanted to include another method of communicating with Quokkabot. So I had to think about all of the different really popular communication methods, and I brought Quokkabot to email, because who doesn't love sending email? So for this, I decided to use the SendGrid email API because, again, I was able to get some help with that. And this was really fun to work out because, fun fact, emails come through as multi-part form data, which for the most part is how forms that are submitted work. But emails do it a little bit differently. And for the most part, it's fine unless you're dealing with attachments. And people are sending in images, therefore I have to deal with attachments. Now this is fine because there's a whole bunch of JavaScript packages that make it easy to go through and pass these requests and get the attachments back. Except when I first did this, none of the packages worked with Azure Functions. So I just like to tell people that because I spent so much time pulling my hair out trying to get this demo working. I talked about the email version of this for the first time, and I think I got it working an hour before my session started. I had people trying to help me. So I just need to tell everybody how difficult it is to work with Azure Functions, emails, and attachments. Please don't do it. It's not worth the trouble. But now we have Quokkabot there. So all of the work that I've done, I'm hiding, and we have a function that says pass multi-part form data, and from that I'm able to get the body of the message and any files that are attached. I did then spend a whole lot of time because the attachments come through in buffer format, not as a URL attachment. So I spent ages trying to work out how I could upload an image to get a URL to send it in. And then I discovered, wait, that's just getting the body and sending the message. Yeah, so we set the message of the email and the API keys. And here we go. If we have an image, we send it through. Now, so I spent ages trying to upload the buffer of the image so that I could get a URL. And then I discovered that Custom Vision actually has a different function where instead of passing in a URL, I could just send it the image buffer, which was way easier. And I did not at all spend 4 days trying to work out how I could easily upload the image to Discover. I didn't actually have to do anything. So in this case, I'm going to send through, again, the project ID, which model I'm training against, the iteration, which version of the model I'm training against, and the image. So this is the image I've gotten from the email. And then I'm going to go through and set the message. I'm just going to format the results. If you would like to see the code behind these mysterious functions that I'm using, I will share it out at the end. Once again, similar to my WhatsApp function, I'm also then going to go through if they haven't included an image, error, issue or wrong, have they asked for a Quokka, or just tell them about it. So then we're going to go through and send the email. Now, we're going to hope that the demo works. And while I test to see whether I can get the demo working, you can also try it yourself. You can send an email to hi@quokkas.dev. And I'm going to do this as well, which is super interesting to watch me send an email on my phone. But it just got too stressful having my email up on the screen and like being really worried that something would come through after I cleared the inbox out before my talk. And we're going to see if this works. Oh, I got a response back. I got an email. I have an email. There's a picture of a Quokka there. And it says, welcome to Quokkabot. I can do a bunch of different things that have to do with Quokkas. So we have the email version of Quokkabot working, which is exciting because now we can send and receive more emails, and we love to send and receive more emails. So for those who would like to know more about Quokkabot, I have a website, which is quokkas.amyscapers.dev, which I'll share out at the end as well, which has the information about Quokkabot. So I talk about why I built Quokkabot, what it is, what Quokkas are, and includes a bunch of blog posts. About how I built it. So if you'd like to have a look a bit more about how that works, that is available on there. Now, this was really cool, but I also kind of wanted a way to showcase a little bit more about what it is that we were doing and what the results that other people were getting were. Because it's always really fun to tell people to test it out and send their own pictures in. And then afterwards, I go, by the way, we're going to put it up on the screen. So please make sure that you've only sent in appropriate messages and you're not going to inadvertently make me break the code of conduct. Now, to do this, we're using another Twilio API, which is the Twilio Sync API. Now, this allows me to kind of store somewhere and keep in sync various bits of information. Now, to do this, I want to keep track of a picture of the last Quokka that was sent by Quokkabot. So the last time someone was sent a picture of a Quokka, I want to know which one that was. And B, I'd like to keep the last 5 results. So the last 5 pictures that were sent in and what the results were. So I'm using, again, the Twilio package. We're going to authenticate, and I'm using their sync service. And I then have 2 functions, one to update the results. So this is the results that people have gotten back. And to do that, I'm going to need the image that was sent in and the results that we got from Custom Vision. And I'm going to sync the past results list. So this is a list of different things. I'm going to create a new list item, and I'm going to send it the image and the results. I then have an update image function, and I'm going to get the last image that was sent. I'm going to send it in an image, and this I'm going to set the documents, the image document, I'm going to update it to be the image URL, which we're able to see. If I go to quokkas.amyscapers.dev/results, I should then be able to see results of photos that have been sent in, the photos, the results, and the last Quokka that was sent. So let's actually test out if this works. it to this one. And if I say hi, I should get a picture of a Quokka back. And this Quokka should also be available. It's not updating, it's updating slowly. But we can see some of the previous Quokka classifications have updated as well. So here's some of the images that have been sent in. Is that a photo of a Quokka on the screen? Here we go. Yeah. So we're able to see a bunch of the images that have come through. So we're able to see some of the results that people have gotten, which is pretty cool. So I can showcase some of the stuff. Wow, there's a whole lot of stuff coming through. Paddington is absolutely not a Quokka. Yeah, very cool. So, what next? This is a side project, which means rather than me actually finishing it, we like to extend the scope and make this even more complicated and do a whole lot of other things to add to it. Next, I would like to add some additional ways to contact Quokkabot. Had been planning on integrating it with Twitter, but not feeling Twitter right now. We'll see how the things go. So looking at other options and adding another way to integrate, play around with APIs in a different way to contact Quokkabot. Also want to improve the error reporting to allow people to actually retrain the image model themselves. So I talked briefly about how we use the predictor API, but there is also a training API. I'd like to be able to add it. So if somebody says this result was wrong, this actually is a Quokka, and it said it wasn't a Quokka, should be able to send that straight to custom vision and retrain it with the correct tag. So I'd like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to trust people in an audience to only accurately retrain images, but I'd also like to go through and add the functionality so that people could do that. I can add the functionality and then I can just trust that people won't abuse it. So the other question I get asked is why? What is the use of this? That was kind of the whole point behind this. Was it was a fun way to play around with different technologies and different APIs. It didn't necessarily have to be useful. I do think it is kind of useful to sometimes you can be like, I'm having a really bad day, please send me a Quokka. Or when you come to Australia and you see this furry creature in the grass, you can be like, is it a Quokka? Can I get up? Can I take a selfie? Is it a drop bear? Is it a snake wearing a wig? What is going on? Can I take a photo? And you can tell me whether or not this creature is safe and how certain you are. There are a whole lot of ways that this same technology and approach can be expanded for different use cases. I had somebody who expanded this and they did a redback spider identifying bot. So you could send it a picture and it would tell you if it was a redback, which in terms of dangerous Australian animals was a little bit more useful so that you could identify things. However, that kind of detracted from the showing a cute Australian creature that doesn't want to kill you and it's actually still safe to go there because it's not completely dangerous. Kind of didn't want to talk about dangerous spiders. That kind of defeated the purpose. I also had somebody come up after I gave this talk one time and asked about, they were looking at expanding this kind of technology. He worked for a local council and allowing people to take photos of their rubbish bin and it would tell them whether or not things could be recycled and whether they were in the correct bin. So there are a lot of more practical, boring ways that you could use this technology that aren't just pictures of quokkas, but it's late in the evening and I'm at a conference in another country, and so I'm going to talk about pictures of quokkas. That's why I do it. So for anybody who would like to have a look at the code. I have a repo available on GitHub, which I will tweet out and post on Mastodon at the end of the session so that you can easily find it. This has a link. This has information about all of the code, including a lot of the underlying functions behind formatting the results and updating the Twilio sync stuff. So that takes a lot of the work out of it. Thank you very much for coming to my session. I tried to sort of keep it not too late for you so that people can either get home or to something or other. Are there any questions? We did have one question, which someone asked, how many pictures are currently in here? So currently, I have 545 photos that aren't Quokkas and 286 photos that are Quokkas. So that's what the current image set that it's been trained on are. It's fairly accurate. It's also fairly accurate considering we're kind of a little bit obnoxious about the training. So like if someone sent in an illustration of a Quokka, I made it say that that was a Quokka, which really confused things because those aren't fluffy things. Those are static inanimate objects. Other photos like this, I said is not a Quokka because that says no Quokkas. So it was a little bit obnoxious with the training set, which made it a little bit confused for the most part. But other than that, it has been fairly accurate. We very rarely get small, fluffy animals that it gets confused by. There was a question, I saw a hand raised towards the back there.
Regarding custom vision, I guess, training, does it deal well with heavily biased training? Yeah. So like, if there's a lot of
Does custom vision deal well with heavily biased training data? For example, if there was a lot of not Quokkas and not many Quokkas. I think it does. I think when I actually started, I had like 10 photos of things that weren't Quokkas and 50 photos of Quokkas, which I know in the scheme of machine learning data sets is nowhere near heavily biased. That did okay. I'm not too sure how well it would go with more heavily biased and larger data sets. I haven't delved too much into that, so probably couldn't accurately answer that question anymore. I would highly recommend tomorrow going and chatting with the lovely folks at the Azure booth and bother them about it. Because either they might know or they would probably have a colleague who could answer that a bit more accurately. Sorry, I forgot as well. I'm impressed that people actually ask questions. I did bring chocolates to try and prompt questions. So thanks for asking without bribes. I apologise for the fact that I'm a horrendous throw. So, you know what, come up and find me afterwards. Otherwise, I'm gonna hit people. Really sorry. It's also late in the day and I've had like 5 coffees, so my hands are a little bit jittery from all the caffeine. Did anybody else have any questions now that I have put up the bribe? Yes.
It'd be cool, I think, sorry, more of a suggestion. It'd be cool if you used cognitive services. Is it Lewis, the language understanding thing? And it could recognize the sentiment. So if you said, I swear to God, don't send me another Quokka, it might not send you a Quokka.
Yeah, so I could use the cognitive services language understanding to analyse what the message actually said. I think I have thought about using that. The repo is public. You're welcome to submit a PR to add that in. I think I have thought about doing that, but it's also really fun. Everyone always gets a laugh when I say a really advanced AI, otherwise known as an if-else statement. Doesn't matter which audience I'm presenting to, everyone always gets that joke. But that's a good idea to expand it out.
You could do it and then ignore the sentiment and say, no, that must be.
Someone says, please, 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 I'm terrified of Quokkas. Do not send me a Quokka. And just send them a picture of a Quokka. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Sorry, show the slide with the,
The text, diagram like
the tech stack.
yeah.
Sorry, I heard tack stuck and I was like, is tack stuck? Okay, I'm gonna just show the section on the website that shows this one. Yeah, so I've got the tech stack on the website because I knew that all good presentations that use different services need to have a tech stack diagram. So we've got the WhatsApp API and then the Twilio SendGrid API. So those are the different tech stacks for the WhatsApp or email.
Send it just sort of through over the face of it.
Yeah.
It would recognize. Has that gone into the data? Like, is it because it's said it's like 99% recognized? I think you said that even drawings get recognized. If I slowly changed it like pixel by pixel, would I then be able to just send it like a red square and say that's not, or does that not get added to the data set?
So if you gradually change, so each image doesn't get trained, it will predict and I can then manually go through. So I can go through and have a look at images that have been sent in. I've lost my mouse. There. I can have a look at the images and somewhere here there is a train button. So I can go through and retrain on all the images and I can correct any tags that it's applied. So you could gradually change it to confuse it, but I would have to be manually retraining it. If I added the training ability, so you could send in a picture to train the bot, you could potentially trick it that way. However, as I said, I'd love to be able to trust the audience to not trick the bot so I don't have to go back and start from scratch. So probably could, it just requires a manual approach to do it. Sorry? What am I going to give someone who's managed to trick it? I have shiny Quokka stickers. I have a couple of shiny Quokka stickers. You managed to trick it. Okay, I'm going to get people to come up and I'm going to check because I think someone was like, oh, it said it's not a Quokka. And yeah, someone tried to trick me about tricking it at a previous session. So I'm going to come up. I have limited shiny Quokkas, so you might have to deal with just chocolates. So you might have to deal with just chocolates or shiny Quokkas. Did anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
How much of your Apple cost?
This is the second time I've got that question. I've given this talk so many times and someone was like, how much does this cost? I was like, I actually don't know. I actually have no idea. I think I tried to have a look and I can't work the subscriptions and everything. I couldn't work out what was going on. I think it was having issues. Come and ask me afterwards and I can have a look and tell you. I'm not too sure because one of the advantages of being an MVP is I get Azure credits, which is the main reason I actually do this because I don't have the money to fork out my own money for setting this up. I don't think it's too much.
The premium the one that doesn't have the cost.
No, so I'm actually not using standalone Azure functions for this. So this is actually run on Azure Static Web Apps, and so it's using the API backend. So the Quokka website is actually on Azure Static Web Apps, and then the API backend, which uses Azure functions, is how that's the Azure function that it's using. So it's actually not a standalone function. So I think it does have a cold start. So I think typically before my session, I just send a bunch of messages to Quokkabot and try and get it working. Actually, no, because so I send a couple of messages to just kind of wake it up. But when I give the talk, that's running locally on my computer. So it's just my computer, so I'm not having to worry about the cold start as much. But yeah, sometimes people send me a message, they'll be like, oh, I tried Quokkabot, it's not working, and I'm like, just send it again, it will have woken up by now. So yeah. But yeah, come and see me afterwards, I can have a look. I'm pretty sure that Azure Static Web Apps is free still. I think I'm still using the free one, or it is still free, or it's part of the free tier or something. So I think that doesn't cost me anything. The custom vision, and I think there might be an app service behind it that costs, but I can have a look, and I might actually update the slides. Yeah, I've seemed to have gotten that question a couple of times now, just like out of the blue, so I can find out. Any other questions? Cool. So those who have managed to trick Quokkabot, come and see me. I'll see how many shiny stickers I've got. Otherwise, I have Australian chocolates, caramel chocolates for anybody who asks me a question. And I have just regular stickers here on stage as well for anybody else who would like to get a sticker. There is a Quokka on the sticker. These are also nice and small stickers because I misestimated how big the stickers I was ordering were. So these are limited edition small stickers. Thank you very much for coming to my session. I will be around for the rest of the conference, so if you have any questions you'd like to come up and ask them afterwards, or even if you want to keep messaging Quokkabot, I'll remember to switch it over to the live version so that it'll keep running when I turn my computer off. So thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.